The NBA world has been crazy, but it is the beginning of February. And just like I promised you guys at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of every month, that means a new set of power rankings. I think you guys get the picture. Let's get into it. All right, my criteria is simple. How good have you looked all season? And how much do I think your last month of basketball will impact your future based on your injuries, based on your record, right? And any trades that you may have made over the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about all of those as we get to each and every team. The last thing that I kind of want to throw out there is a side rule. View these teams in tiers of five, right? If you want to have 28 at 27 and vice versa, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. But any questions, of course, drop them down in the comments below. At number 30, of course, you have the Wizards. They're the only team without double-digit wins. That is self-explanatory. 29, the Charlotte Hornets are at their all-time low in my rankings. And again, that's expected with Brandon Miller going down with a season-ending injury. LaMelo Ball is now out. Honestly, I might doubt that they even bring him back for the remainder of the season. The Jazz at 28, they've had some pretty good games here and there over the last month. Brooklyn continues to drop down back to reality. And the Pelicans are at 26 simply for the fact that Trey Murphy and Zion Williamson are healthy and they're playing. And honestly, I would rather have that than whatever else these other teams got going on. Moving into the top 25, and the Raptors are at the bottom of that. Look, they're 12th in the Eastern Conference. They just haven't had a great year, right? Whether Scotty Barnes was healthy or not, they just haven't had the win-loss success that we all thought that they would. You know, I think the expectation was to be a play-in or a borderline playoff team before the season, and I guess they're on track to be a play-in team, but at this point in time, they have doubled the losses compared to wins. They need to get back or get a little bit hot right here to make a play-in push. At number 24 is the Chicago Bulls. They stand pat, just like a lot of teams that made moves here, because I want to see how these teams look after these trades. But at 24 is the Bulls. They're 10th in the East. They are in the play-in mix, but they just traded away Zach LaVine. I like the package they got back for him. A lot of draft capital, but I'll say this. They got their own pick back, which we can tell that the Bulls are definitely heading in a certain direction. I'm not going to throw that the four-letter word out there, but you can tell they're trying to get Cooper Flag. At 23 is the Philadelphia 76ers. It's just hard to win when your best players are not on the court and healthy and playing. Tyrese Maxey is doing all he can. Paul George, even if he is playing, he looks like he's hurt. This is a team that I really thought that this year could be a gelling year, and then next year they can compete for a title. It looks like that timeline is going to continue to get pushed back as long as Joel Embiid is not on the court playing basketball. At 22, one of the five teams at their all-time high this year on my rankings, the Portland Trailblazers. Don't look out, don't be surprised, but this is a team that is actually playing really good basketball at the moment. This is a team that's won 4 straight games. They're now 13th in the Western Conference, and they're only a couple games behind teams like the Spurs and the Warriors in the Western Conference. At 21 is the Miami Heat, and I'm just sitting on my hands here because I'm waiting for Jimmy Butler. Are you going to trade him? When are you going to trade him? And what are you going to get back for him? But still, I think they do deserve their credit. They're 6th in the East despite all this drama. But again, I'm waiting to see what happens with Jimmy. Moving into the top 20, we have a lot of teams that are dropping significant amount of spots here with the Atlanta Hawks, the Golden State Warriors, and the Orlando Magic, as much as I hate to say that. But for the Atlanta Hawks, they're just a team that, look, you lost Jalen Johnson for the year. Trae Young was an all-star snub. I had him as a starter. So for the NBA to not even have him on their ballot is absolutely atrocious. But Trae Young has had a great season. I think they're going to be busy at the deadline, whether if it's moving Clint Capella or who else, like Bogdan Bogdanovic, excuse me, Bogey. He has some interest around the league. Interested to see if he gets moved. I think a team like Milwaukee could use him. But I'm looking to see what they do at the deadline. But overall, I think they're just a playing team at most. Maybe they make the playoffs if everything goes right. But I think a lot of the early season hype around this team for myself kind of died down. Golden State, they're at 11th in the Western Conference. Steph Curry is not prime Stephen Curry anymore. He's still a top 10 player when he wants to be, but consistently, he's not that anymore. So they need to get some help around him. Interested to see if they make a move. It seems like they're just like the new Lakers. They just keep pump faking reports out there. The Lakers are interested, or the Warriors are interested in this player and that player, and then they just never make a move. Now, I will say they are kind of confined to limited moves. I don't think that they have the capital, well, I'll say this, to make some of these bigger trades that they want to make just due to the contract situations. But Golden State at number 19, they're just relying too much on a guy that is not in his prime anymore. At 18, as much as I don't want to admit this, but it's the Orlando Magic, man. They dropped 11 spots, by far and away the biggest faller in this month's rankings. They're struggling to put up 100 points in a game over this last month. And this is a team that, again, if you can't put up 100 points in a game, you're not going to win much in modern day NBA basketball. I was super high on this team. And again, they're still eighth in the Eastern Conference. They're still going to be a tough out in the first round because of their defense, but it's the offense, you know. And I've been, again, last month I had him in my top 10. I had him there, and I've had him there for a long time because I knew that this defense was going to show up on a nightly basis. But it's the offense that I figured, okay, it'll fix itself when Paolo and Franz come back into the lineup. But this is a team that just consistently hasn't been healthy all season. They've had struggles offensively. I'm interested to see if they're another interesting team at the deadline. Now that Zach LaVine is gone and some of these guys that they were interested in, they no longer have a chance to go to Orlando this season. So is Orlando going to go out there and make a move, or are they just going to stay in pad and kind of wait for next season? Something to look out for. But I think if they can figure out this offense, nobody wants to play them in the first round. At 17 is the Detroit Pistons. They're another one of the 5 teams that have reached their highest on my list this season. They're playing really good basketball, despite losing Jaden Ivey for the season. One of their best 18 to 20 point per game scores it has been out, and they're still playing arguably the best basketball of the season, which I think they are. At this point in time, they're 7th in the Eastern Conference. At this rate, I think that they're going to avoid the play-in and honestly be the number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference with how everybody else around them in the rankings and standings are looking. But again, it all depends on what Miami gets back for Jimmy Butler. That'll definitely make Detroit's life a little bit harder if that was what they were shooting for. But 7th in the East, I think they're playing really good basketball, and Cade, deservingly so, was a first-time All-Star. At 16 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look, I do want to say this. There's some pros and cons to this last month of basketball. One, Anthony Edwards is not so reliant on the three-point shot anymore. He's just going to go out there and say, I'm Anthony Edwards. I'm going to get 30 every single night. And he had a pretty good month as far as scoring the basketball. But outside of that, they're 7th in the Western Conference. They've lost 2 in a row. It's really a lot of the same issues that we've had this season and questions we've had about this team have remained the same. Is there enough consistency on the offensive end around Anthony Edwards so he doesn't have to be Superman on a nightly basis? I can tell you one thing. It's another month where we look at this roster and say they can use a Karl-Anthony Towns. Moving into the top 15, we're going to start with Sacramento, who are the biggest risers in this past month. Now, I do want to say I kind of did these rankings before that De'Aaron Fox trade. Regardless, I'm going to leave them here because I still think there's a fair amount of optimism around this team going forward. This is a team that just brought in Zach LaVine and a lot of draft capital. So for Sacramento, I like this trade for them, and we'll talk about that next week. But I'm interested to see the dynamic of Malik Monk and Zach LaVine in the backcourt. This was already not a great defensive team, and then you just got rid of your best backcourt defender, De'Aaron Fox. So I want to see the defense of this team, hey, at the bare minimum, they're going to be a fun team to watch because they're going to score 120 to 130 points a night. And if that's the case, they're going to be a hard team to beat for anybody. But defensively, they definitely have some questions. Interested to see what they do there. A team that doesn't have defensive questions are the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, we know about Wemby. He's having a great career season as we are witnessing it this year. But they are 12th in the West. They are a little bit behind the 8 ball as far as where they want to position themselves as far as the playoff picture. But what I do want to say is that bringing in De'Aaron Fox is a huge just jolt. It's a huge boost to this offensive end. So it's not so reliant around Wemby. You have another guy that can come in and close games. He can command the offense. He can, I guess, facilitate to a higher level than what they had around Chris Paul. He just does a lot for the San Antonio, team in general, and I'm excited to see how this team looks going forward. But as of right now, I understand the record's not there. I do think this is going to be a huge addition, and I think that they're going to be a playoff team come April. So I'm going to kind of use projection here with the San Antonio Spurs. At number 13 and at number 12, we have 2 teams that are rising 5 spots, respectfully. We're going to start with the Phoenix Suns. This is a team that is 10th in the Western Conference, and they haven't necessarily look the greatest at, they haven't been the most consistent. That's a better word to use there. They have lost 2 games to the Portland Trailblazers in this month, but the Trailblazers are hot. As we talked about just a few moments ago, this is a team that at the end of the day, they have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And I do want to say over this last month, they picked up Nick Richards, which is a huge addition at the 5, and Bradley Beal finally moved to the bench. So that was something I was pitching in the offseason, and some people called me crazy, but here we are. And I think they're finding their groove as far as how they're going to work with Bradley Beal coming off this bench. So I'm interested to see this team going forward, but as of right now, they have the offensive firepower to compete with anybody. But if you want to talk about offensive firepower, look no further than Indiana with the Pacers. They have fully caught their stride. They're getting hot at the right time. And despite being 12th in my rankings, they're 4th in the Eastern Conference. They've won 4 straight, and arguably they had the best month right up there with the Sacramento Kings of January out of any team here in the NBA. This is a team, and I don't mean this. I don't mean this in a joking manner. This is a team that on any given night can beat anybody. On their best night, I think they can legitimately beat anybody. And if their offense can be hot, again, that even adds to the case. But for example, I bring that up because you can just say, okay, of course, it's the NBA. Anybody can beat anybody. But on Washington's best night, I don't think they beat Sacramento. And that's a team in the middle of the league. This is a team in Indiana that I don't even have in my top 10. But because of their offensive firepower and because of the fact that if they get hot, they get hot. I think even though they're at 12, they can beat anybody on a nightly basis. I think they can beat the Thunder if they have their best day there, whether at home or on the road. That's just how much I believe in this Indiana offense. We just need to find a little bit more consistency around Pascal Siakam. We need a consistent playoff version of Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton. And if there's any way that we can get all 3 of these guys to click at the same time, they're going to be a fun team and dangerous team in the Eastern Conference yet again. And number 11 is the Dallas Mavericks. They wanted defense, and they got defense. If you want to hear my full thoughts about the Luka trade, we had a special guest on the show yesterday, and of course, we dove into the trade, and we talked about everything. So go check that out yesterday. But I will say this. I'm going to leave them at 11 because I want to see how they play. But I also will say they have a more complete roster now. They definitely have more defense added into the lineup. Whether if it was the right move or wrong move, they made the move. And I want to see how they look going forward. But Dallas, definitely, again, a little bit more of a complete team. Moving into the top 10, we're going to kick it off here with the Milwaukee Bucks. I do want to start by saying that they have lost 4 straight, and they are 5th in the West in the Eastern Conference. But this is a team that, when you look at their advanced statistics, Damian Lillard and Giannis have been the best duo in the NBA this season. They figured it out. They figured out how to, I guess, maximize both of their play on the court at the same time. And the defense has gotten better around these two. So I think they do have solid pieces to be a tough out in the playoffs. Again, nobody wants to play Giannis in the first round or Damian Lillard for that matter. But this is a team that I want to see make maybe a move or two. Go out there and grab somebody, maybe a Bogdan Bogdanovic, if you can, a Cam Johnson. Just add something to the wing on this team around Giannis and Dame that outside of Chris Middleton, who's taken a step back this year. But it could just, be that extra piece, that that cherry on top for this team to help you in those dire moments. That's just something I want to see Milwaukee go out there and get. At number 9 is the LA Lakers. I'm keeping them at 9. I want to see how they look. I want to see them go out there and get a Clint Capella, right? I want to see him go out there and get a Robert Williams or an Andre Drummond just to add to this center rotation, because as good or as much potential as Jackson Hayes may have, on his best day, I don't think he's a starting 5 on a championship level team. So go out there and get a Clint Capella. I think that would be a match made in heaven. And of course, picking up Luka Doncic. At the end of the day, I will say this, and I talked about it yesterday. If you have 77 on your team, you are a championship contender. And then you add on the fact that LeBron James is on the roster. This is a team that I think is no doubt. I had questions before. Now I don't. They are championship contenders because Luka is on the roster. Also, interesting fact, this is the first time LeBron is not the best player in his team in his career, in his illustrious GOAT career. This is the first time he's not the best player in his team. So something to look out for going forward. But the Lakers, to me, as of right now, are championship contenders. And number 8 is the LA Clippers. This is a team that is 6th in the Western Conference. And technically, yes, they are behind the Lakers at this point in time. But I like the versatility of this team because they play defense. That's very consistent on a nightly basis. But offensively, it could be Harden, it could be Norman Powell, it could be Kawhi Leonard, who's only getting better on a nightly basis. I just like that it's not solely around one guy like some other teams on this list. And the Clippers they can win a game in a variety of ways. I think they have the best coach in the game, or at least top two in Tyronn Lue. I just like this team top to bottom, and I think they play really good team basketball. And number 7 is the Denver Nuggets. They are fourth in the Western Conference. They've won 3 straight. They did just lose Russell Westbrook for a couple of games, but regardless, this is a team where I saw a stat that said when he's on the court, this is a top 5 offensive rating of all time. And of course, I'm talking about Nikola Jokic. When he's off the court, this is a bottom 5 offense of all time as far as offensive rating. So that further, I guess, validates my point of why I think Jokic is the MVP of the league. Now, whether if he gets it or not, that's a different story. But honestly, I think based on that stat alone, he should walk away with his 3rd or 4th MVP. He's won so many, I can't even remember at this point. But at number 6 is the Memphis Grizzlies. They are 2nd in the Western Conference, and you can argue this team can be high as, I mean, hey, 3 or 4 on this list. And that's where some spots, if it's 1 or 2 difference, I'm not going to argue you too much there. But Memphis has an argument to be as high as 4 in my rankings. But as of right now, they've won 3 straight games. Ja has been more consistent. He's not playing every single game yet, but he's still playing a lot more than he was to start the year. I do want to see this team maybe go out there and make a move, man. Go out there and get a Clint Capella, right? Go out there and make a move for a legitimate 5. So you have Edey and then also a big that you bring in. That's just one move that I would like to see them make. But outside of that, this team is playing really good basketball, and Jaren Jackson definitely deserves all the flowers that he's going to be getting because he's going to be an all-defensive player this year, and interested to see if he's going to be in the mix for the Defensive Player of the Year. Moving into the top 5, it's a lot of the same, of course, as it's been the last couple of months, and that's just because I believe that these 5 teams have everything. They are very complete rosters. They have good coaching staffs, and I think there's a mixture of experience and youth on all of these teams where they can legitimately win the NBA Finals this year. And number 5 is the Houston Rockets. Of course, they have everything that I just said. Outside of maybe the experience, right? You want to see maybe Jalen Green and Sengun carry some of that. But again, you can make that same argument with the team at number 2. I do think that they have the defense that on any given night that they can win any given game because of how great that defense is. Same can be said at number 4 with the New York Knicks. I just think that they have the offense, a little bit more offensive firepower than the Houston Rockets, despite losing to them the other night. But I just trust Jalen Brunson. I trust Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges. I trust some of these guys as an overall unit more than what the Houston Rockets have to bring on a nightly basis in those key playoff games. And number 3 is Boston. This is their lowest ranking on this season, believe it or not. Boston fans, please don't take this as a diss. I just think as a Cavs fan, as someone who underrates my own team as much as I do, I think it's finally time. I think it's finally time where I think because of that championship rust, because of the fact that I think Boston's kind of on cruise control at the moment, I think Cleveland just, look, they're hungry, they're young, they're motivated, and they have something to prove. So that's why I think they've looked better this regular season. Now in the playoffs, might be a different story. I think Boston might just come out and turn that switch, and they might just win the game, and they might sweep everybody. That's the potential that Boston has. But for Cleveland, I think, just like just like the LA Clippers, they have so much versatility offensively, right? I mean, there's multiple nights. There's more nights than not that Donovan Mitchell's not our leading scorer, and we're winning by double-digit points every single night. I like the fact that Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to be Superman like he was last year. And again, I think a large part of that is due to Kenny Atkinson coming into town, and he is no doubt the coach of the year in my books because of this new found confidence that he's given to some of these younger players, and of course the systems that he's installed here in Cleveland. I'm going to have Cleveland at 2. Is it a mistake? I don't think so. But again, playoff time, this could be a completely different story in the Eastern Conference. And at number 1, I'm just going to say this. The Oklahoma City Thunder, despite missing some of their key players, are by far and away the best team in the league. The other night, I'll just say this. The other night, a guy in Aaron Wiggins that is usually their 8th, 9th man on their roster in their rotation, he had 41 points and 14 rebounds with 6 made threes. That's not even including their starting lineup. That's not even their 6th man in Aaron Wiggins. And he had that kind of a stat line. That shows you how deep this team is, how dangerous this team is. They have the experience on their side now with last year in the playoffs. They're hungry. Their defense is there. The offense is there. They have the superstar player. Coaching staff is good. The Thunder look like they're on their way to make it back to the finals. I won't say win it, but it looks like they look like they're on their way back to the finals, especially now that Luka's not in Dallas. But again, if maybe if they run into a Luka Doncic in the playoffs, maybe it's more the same as we saw last year. Because again, Luka's gonna be pissed off, and he's now in a different situation. He has something to prove. So I think as long as the Thunder don't run into 77, they're gonna be pretty. They're gonna be fine, and they're gonna be on their way to fight for the Larry OB. But that was episode 250, man. Episode 250, February power rankings. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. Any questions, comments, concerns, drop them down below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I possibly can, man. We're on the way to 18,000 subscribers. We're right there, right? And if this is your first time on the channel, man, welcome. We are consistent. We don't miss days. And if you need further reason to support the channel, on Thursday we have our Super Bowl 59 special where we're going to dive into the game, give our picks like we do every single NFL week. So it's the last one on the year. It's going to be the biggest show of the year. If you want to stop by and see what we have, that would be greatly appreciated. That's all I'm asking for, is a chance from you guys. But episode 250 in the books. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, get out of here.